Welcome Ludlow Public Schools family and Ludlow school community. I am Erica Figinski-Stark, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and I have the pleasure of opening this evening's discussion. Tonight, our Ludlow Public School administrative team has come together to answer questions you have shared related to our site-based return to school plans. Joining us this evening, we have Principals Thomas Welch, Nikki Reed, Melissa Knowles, Stacy Manette, and Lisa Nemeth, as well as Kathleen Demetrius, our business manager, assistant business manager, Eva Tillotson, Director of Special Education, Kristen Button, our nurse leader, Michael Asaf, Instructional Technology Coordinator, and of course myself, Erica Figinski, Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Tonight, our order of questions that we will address will begin with our elementary schools. We'll then move into our middle and high school information. And from there, full remote cohort C questions will be answered. We'll continue responding to questions by looking at protocols and procedures, special education, English as a second language, transportation, food service, staying healthy, and technology. Once we go through the questions that we've received there and respond to your inquiries, we will then have an opportunity for a live follow-up question and answer. And we will take those and we'll have the specific individuals, whether it's school-based or department-based, respond to those questions. So at this time, let us begin. We're going to turn the floor over to our elementary, preschool to fifth grade administrators.
So thank you for that. And again, welcome parents and community to our forum this evening. I am going to start with the early education and a few of those questions that were asked of us at East Street School. We will be reading the full question and then giving our answer and then continuing on. So our first question tonight is, I would like to know how student attendance will be impacted if a student is unable to log in at a designated time on his or her remote learning days. Young elementary students, such as my kindergarten student, cannot independently access technology and will not be with a parent on remote days, thus will not be able to access scheduled learning times. I am a teacher parent. This schedule is impossible for us. I would hope and expect that as long as all assigned work is completed and submitted with his parents when we are available after work, students will not and should not be considered absent. So our answer to this question tonight is the state has mandated that students in all grade levels will check in daily at designated times to be considered present. Now, this would normally occur after 9 a.m. as most remote elementary classes will start with a virtual morning meeting. There will be time throughout the day where students will be working on their own and checking in with their teacher. There will be leeway for students experiencing difficulty logging, checking in, or having a difficulty completing the work. Question 2. I have a pre-K and first grade student. How will drop-off times and morning meeting be arranged so that there is enough time to drop off my pre-K student and return home so that my first grade student will be able to log in to morning meeting on time? I am an educator and need to be teaching live during this time, so a grandparent living about 15 minutes away will be doing drop-off and facilitating morning remote learning. Thank you for all you do. So our answer to this question is drop-off will begin at 8:30 and it will last until 9 o'clock. The start day for hybrid or remote students is 9 o'clock. And again, generally that'll be morning meeting at that time. So this should give a family or your family ample time to drop off the preschool student and then log in with your older student. Number 3, will kids have different teachers for remote and in-person classes? And the answer to this is they may have 2 different teachers depending on the situation of a particular grade level or cohort. But planning and instruction will remain consistent between both educators. Number 4, will students who are a part of cohort C receive a kindergarten screening? And will there be an option to come into the building for that to meet the teacher, or will that be remote as well? There will be a screening time set up for every remote kindergarten student, and they will be coming into the building live. And there will be an option to meet the teacher at the building, of course, at that time, because the teacher will be doing the screening. More information regarding a parent-student orientation for each building will be forthcoming later in this presentation. Number 5, will preschoolers wear masks throughout their school day? And yes, we have made a decision in this district that preschoolers will wear masks throughout the day. So pre-K to 12, we're expecting that our students wear masks. On a side note, we did get a report from the Boys and Girls Club. They've been having summer sessions all season this last couple months, and surprisingly, the younger children have been having no problem adhering to the mask policy. There's a little problem with some of the older kids with wearing their masks consistently. And at this time, I will pass the microphone over to Mrs. Reed, the principal of Chapin Street School.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Number 6, can we invest in an app that tells parents when buses are about to arrive? This will help tremendously with parents who are trying to balance working commitments and bus stop pickups. The elementary schools will be using a program called School Dismissal Messenger. This will help with arrival and dismissal. One feature with the system will have a check-in all students button to be sent a no-reply email. It's just to those parents in real time saying your child's made it onto, for example, bus 3, and that bus 3 has left our campus. That's the only real-time bus information that will be going out to parents, and it's one notification, and it's via email. The next question, what are you going to do about kids who need extra help with reading? Well, this year we have class sizes that are much smaller, so this will allow for classroom teachers to focus on student needs and challenges, both in person and remote. The next question, will the first week of remote learning at elementary schools orientation remote connection be a full day? So the answer to that question is no, they will not be a full day of remote learning. We will be setting up some in-person events for both students and parents. We'll provide a schedule specifically for that learning week. Preschool and kindergarten will have orientation scheduled based on their screenings. East Street orientation, first grade, will be September 15th. Chapin orientation and Chromebook handout will be September 16th. And Veterans Park orientation will be September 17th. Next question. Hi, I was wondering when I could get a Chromebook for my son. Am I able to get one before school begins? Mainly because I'm working and the sitter will be doing work with him. Unfortunately, Dad and I are both essential workers. Thanks. Great question. So Chromebooks will be distributed to students at the elementary orientation days that will be scheduled for that week, September 15th through 18th. And for some reason you're working, we can certainly make arrangements at each school to make sure that you get that Chromebook into your child's hands.
Okay, our next question. Will the remote instruction provided to students on the remote days be recorded to assist parents or caregivers with the education of their child? And if no, why? As a parent or guardian, you do have the ability to get email summaries about your student's activity in the Google Classroom by downloading the Google Classroom app and signing up for notifications. So these notifications consist of the missing work, upcoming assignments, and class announcements. There may be assignments with video directions and clarifications so that parents can assist their child when the teacher is not present, and those will also be posted in the Google Classroom. Next question, will the full remote design reflect that the home environment is much different than being live in school? Is the expectation that young East Street students will sit focused in front of Chromebooks for 6 hours a day? Homeschool experts seem to recommend about 1.5 hours of school per day for K-2. My 6-year-old son struggled to sit in front of 30-minute Zooms in the spring, even though they're well facilitated. I will do whatever it takes for him to learn, but I am worried. So there will be opportunities for students to participate in synchronous and asynchronous learning throughout the remote session. The students will be meeting with their teachers at specific times during the day where instruction and check-ins will take place. Our last question for elementary. If my child happens to get sick on the day that she has to attend school in person, does that count against her for being absent, or can she do the work online if she feels well enough? Unfortunately, the answer to that is no. At the elementary level, we're not able to accommodate that, mainly because we do not have remote instruction happening by that teacher on an in-person school day. The next question from the same person, she hasn't issued an LPS Chromebook. What do we do if we happen to have an issue with the Chromebook? Is there a way that she can attend class on an iPad if need be? So there will be an opportunity for families to pick up a Chromebook during the school's orientation days. A Chromebook is the preferred device for simplicity and tech support. There will be very limited tech support for non-school issued devices. And the last part of this question, will there be any way that I can be contacted as to what days my daughter will be in class? I get the emails but don't understand them. A notification revealing your child's teacher and classroom will be sent to you soon, so be on the lookout for that.
Okay, thank you, Principal Welch, Principal Reed, and Mrs. Knowles. At this time, we have our middle school questions, and Principal Stacy Manette.
Good evening, everyone. The first question is, my son will be attending 8th grade. So he will be going to school Monday and Tuesday. Is it based off the letter of your street address correct? Students will attend based on the name of their street, their primary mailing address. Students on streets A through J will attend hybrid in-person on Mondays and Tuesdays. Students on streets K through Z will attend hybrid in-person on Thursdays and Fridays, and all students will be remote on Wednesdays. Second question, do you know when lunch will be for periods 3 and 7? Will it be at the same time for everyone? The answer to that is lunches will be staggered every day and based on the individual student schedules.
Thank you, Principal Manette. And at this time, we move straight on up to the high school and Principal Lisa Nemeth. Lisa?
Thank you. Good evening. The first question is, I do not want to have my son take the bus. I have to take one son to Pathfinder and the other to Ludlow. Would my son be able to arrive, he's a freshman, between 7:25 and 7:35? There is no way I can guarantee him there between 7:30 and 7:35 a.m. I understand your strategy, but I honestly do not want him on a bus at all. I have to get my other son to Pathfinder by 7:40 a.m. The answer to that is yes, of course, that would be fine. Number 2, would it be possible to shorten the time between classes on Wednesdays so that class could begin at 7:45 a.m. as it does so on all the other days? And the reasoning behind that is the time between classes allows for bathroom breaks and even for students to maybe grab a snack. It also allows for students and teachers to log out of one class and get organized for the next class. Therefore, the 7:35 start time makes sense and has to remain at 7:35. Number 3, when will 504 meetings begin that were canceled in the spring? I am concerned about my senior student who is on the spectrum and is lost in the shuffle. Also, will there be independent living for those on the spectrum this year with budget cuts in relation to autism specialists? 504 meetings will begin once all staff begin their workday with the students, which is September 15th. There is an independent living class scheduled. The next question, when the students do start attending school again this coming year, is the actual arrival day based on the name of the street they live on, or did I read the email incorrectly? I'm wondering if I will be receiving another personal email in regards to my child and the information I need in order to ensure my child attends school on the right days and that he does so safely for himself and all others. I think it is his actual learning starts remotely on 9:15, but it doesn't actually start in school learning until 10:05. I appreciate all the time and information that everyone has put together, and I hope this all works out for everyone. If I could please get a follow-up email regarding whether or not I am reading this email correctly, and also a response as to whether or not I will get another email when it gets closer to the actual go-live date, which will give me more information as to how this will exactly work. Thank you for all your time, and I look forward to hearing from you. So the answer is yes, cohorts are assigned by street name. A through J goes Monday, Tuesday, and K through Z goes Thursday, Friday. All students start remotely September 15th, and then 10th graders begin hybrid on October 5th. Question number 5. My son has both 2 10th grade classes and all 11th grade. How is this going to work? And the answer to that is his start date is based on the number of credits he qualifies for to be placed in either 10th or 11th grade. Therefore, if he's falling in between both grades right now due to credits, a school counselor will be reaching out to him next week to let him know where he would fall and when he would begin. Number 6, I have 2 high schoolers, one in 9th, the other in 11th. I have to drop them off on my way to work. Since they are siblings, can I just drop them off together instead of waiting in line again 10 minutes apart? The answer is of course. Number 7, what's the plan to make up for lost classroom time from last spring? In classes that serve as prerequisites such as math and languages, will material be covered at an accelerated pace, or will some material be skipped that's considered less important? All teachers will be assessing where the students are in regards to knowledge and skills. Material will most definitely be reviewed. Number 8, will after-school help still be available for students? Yes, it will remotely, and all teachers will go over that the first day of classes. Number 9, how will PE requirements be addressed? How will students who take band attend a band class? PE class will occur, except for seniors who have met the 3-year graduation requirements. Band class can be held outside with 10 feet apart for the playing of instruments. Other music theory content will be explored with the class along with individual work. Number 10, will the attendance policy be modified as students may stay home whenever they experience mild symptoms? Attendance will be closely monitored by all teachers, and supports will be put in place if a student is out due to symptoms. Number 11, I envision long traffic lines in the morning for students and staff to contend with. What is being done to mitigate excessive traffic? Is Ludlow PD being utilized? Can a parent drop off students in front of the school and have them walk in the building to reduce the long lines? Will students be penalized for being tardy if traffic is an issue? The answer is traffic may actually be very minimal due to the fact that only half of the building will ever be reporting to school. Traffic in the morning and afternoon is being discussed right now to ensure the safest and quickest drop-off routes. More emails and mailing will come in the next weeks. Now back to Dr. Fraginski.
Thank you, Principal Nemeth. So now we're on to full remote, which is cohort C. So these are the students that we are going to be seeing only virtually. The first question that was presented to us asks, will the live sessions be recorded for parents to view later so that we may help with learning? Our response to that is the recording and publication of the lessons will be up to the individual teacher. And currently at this time, the school district is working on updating our electronic use policy as well as our student picture and video policy in anticipation of the need to record lessons. But again, it will be up to the individual teacher to make that decision. Question number 2, can I choose hybrid at a later time after choosing fully remote? Yes. The Ludlow Public Schools is looking at making this transition at each marking period. Every option will have its challenges. Thank you for all the hard work. In regards to cohort C, our third question asks, would it be helpful to have an outline schedule identifying when students have to be checking in with teachers throughout the day? We would refer parents to our LPS plan where we do outline the schedules for students. The family is asking for this plan so that they can plan for their students to be able to assist and support them. If a child has technology issues on a particular day, how will their attendance be recorded? I understand attendance is necessary to get credit for the day, but if all the work is completed, would they still get credit? So cohort C students are still expected to be in attendance. A cohort C student will still follow under the street listing following cohort A's and B's. We'll make sure that they're in class each day. And the only difference is that they are remoting in and they're not going to be in person. So yes, students need to be present and they need to be looking at the schedule published in our return to school plan. So please see that associated schedule for your students. Question 4, can students working remotely in cohort C play sports, and who makes that decision? The decision for full remote students to play sports will be a question that will be brought forward to school committee for their review. At this time, we do not have a decision in regards to that. Question number 5, will full remote students be able to attend orientation? Yes, of course. Full remote students can attend orientations, and families should communicate directly with their students' teachers. Question number 6, will there be live online lessons for kindergarten through 5th grade students? If so, will students be able to get extra help with subjects if needed? Yes, there will be live online lessons for all students, grades K through 12. Teachers will also be setting up whole group, small group instruction, as well as individual support options. And these times will be based on the students' schedules at individual schools as well as teachers. Question 7, will remote education be recorded or have the ability to do classwork at different times if a parent has other obligations during the day, for example, work or appointments? And this is similar to a previous question that we had just received. But again, students are expected for in-person if they're working remotely, they are expected to remote in and be present during their scheduled class time. That is important for us so that we can take attendance. And so while we may be recording and publishing lessons for students to view over the course and time to support their learning, students are still expected to be in attendance in their classes as scheduled for each of their courses. Question number 8, if a student starts to fall behind, if students in the hybrid plan 2 days a week, can they switch to plan C later? Yes. Again, going back to one of the previous questions that we had seen, at this time, students will engage in the model that they selected, and we will reassess this at the change of each marking period. Protocols and procedures. We're going to turn that over to Nurse Kristen Button.
Under protocols and procedures, the question is, will everyone besides custodial staff and possibly administration be out of the school buildings on Wednesday to ensure a proper deep clean between cohorts? We will have procedures in place in each building to assure that every space is deep cleaned, whether a teacher or administration are in the building on Wednesdays or not. A question in regards to homework. Can homework be a little relaxed for students, especially for the reason that parents who already are working from home all day remote and trying to juggle helping their kids through the school day, and then continuing to still juggle remote work from home? Dealing with too much homework after all of this will be just more stressful than they already are. I know in the last meeting that questions was answered like it's business as usual, but things aren't as usual right now. It would be greatly appreciated if homework was a bit relaxed. Thank you. And the answer is, in accordance with DESE guidance, educators are expected to implement the Massachusetts State Curriculum Frameworks as written. Therefore, teachers will be assigning homework as appropriate. Please note that elementary students will not have homework for the 2020-2021 school year. An additional procedures question that was submitted. Since children will be instructed 60% or more outside the physical classroom under the care of parents, caregivers, will a parent advisory group be created to have a voice in the remote learning program? And if no, why? The answer is the elementary, middle, and high schools will be soliciting parent input throughout the year through their school improvement councils. If you are interested in participating on a school improvement council this year, information will be distributed within the next few weeks. Other school departments with a hybrid learning plan allow parents to request changing cohorts to assist parents who have to work outside the home. Will there be an opportunity to request a change in cohort, and if no, why? The answer is no. Cohort A and Cohort B are relatively evenly distributed with a number of students in each group. We logistically have to keep our cohorts even and cannot grant exceptions at this time.
Thank you, Nurse Button. And at this time, we turn the floor over to Ms. Eva Tillotson, Director of Special Education, to review the special education questions presented.
The first question under special education. If a student was in a full-time online school and switched to Ludlow High School right before COVID hit, is there any way the student could be part of the children that go to school in person 4 days a week? Possibly. This would need to be looked at on an individual basis. Please email me directly with your child's name so that I can review the IEP. I feel that this is a discussion we need to have together to determine if your child meets the DESI criteria for 4 days in person. Question number 2. How will special needs students get the services needed? Students with special needs will continue to receive their services on their IEPs by their special education teacher and their related service providers and general ed teachers. If they receive related services, they will be assigned to a cohort and they will come to school either on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. Everyone will be remote on Wednesday. Students in substantially separate programs will be in person 4 days a week and remote on Wednesdays. Remote-only students can continue to receive their IEP services. I have so many questions. What will be transportation and education be like? How will kids learn? At home, they will not learn the same as in school. I'm worried that they'll forget their writing. If your child has transportation on the IEP, transportation will be provided. Your child will continue to receive his or her IEP services. If your child has a writing goal, the goal will be addressed. Question number 4. What would qualify an IEP student to receive 4 days per week in-person services? The following information is from the guidance from DESI, which is on slide 49 of the slideshow that you received. Number 1, students educated primarily outside of the general education classroom by special education teachers and related service providers. For example, in a substantially separate class. Ludlow's substantially separate programs are Pre-K Intensive Learning Program, Intensive Autism Programs, Transition Learning Program, the SIP program, which is our Structured Individualized Program, our Focus Program, Life Skills, and Transition Program. Number 2, preschool age students. Number 3, students who cannot engage in remote learning due to their disability-related needs. 4, students who primarily use aided or augmentative communication. 5, students who are homeless or in foster care or congregate care. 6, special education students identified as English language learners. Number 5, when will parents be notified if their child's IEP qualifies them for 4 days in person? If your child receives services in one of the following substantially separate programs that are listed above, then they qualify for 4-day in-person services. Number 6, my child has special needs and has been in a fully integrated classroom. The information we received from these communications thus far indicate that higher needs students will be returning to school for 4 days. Will these children now be segregated into special needs classrooms? When will someone be reaching out to discuss the plan for my child? He belongs in a classroom with peers. It will not be in his best interest to segregate him. We are looking at each student's IEP and determining how and when we can provide inclusion services per the IEP service delivery grid. Please email me about your child and we can discuss this more. In the slide, number 7, in the slideshow it says that special ed students will be in inclusion classrooms. At the elementary level, it is my understanding that inclusion special education teachers are now teaching classrooms and will be classroom teachers and special education teachers. How will these teachers be able to do 2 jobs and meet the needs of students? What additional supports will these teachers and students, special education students have? We have given every general ed/special ed classroom a para to support the teachers and the students. When the teacher is working with one group, the para can work with another group. Class numbers are small, and we feel this is very doable. Teachers will have time with their colleagues during the 11 days to brainstorm on how to deliver services to their students. Will speech services be done through the computer? Yes, there will be teletherapy for some students during remote days.
Thank you, Ms. Tillotson. The next set of questions is regarding English as a second language. And the first question that was posed was, how has this slide presentation been delivered to parents who do not speak, understand, or read English? So at this time, the Office of Curriculum Instruction is in process of connecting with all ESL families to identify the proper translation of documents, giving the varying needs of access to printed content. And so as we create these documents, the documents will be translated for those families. But as you know, we are kind of quickly unrolling information out, but that will be provided to our families. Families who have questions can email myself, Erica Faginski-Stark, at ludlowps.org, or the LPS ESL coordinator, Jessica Gonzalez, at jgonzalez@ludlowps.org. Just a side note, new to district students, in accordance with DESE guidance, will be provisionally identified as ESL if their home language survey indicates the presence of a second language. Because we are in need of screening students, we are going to start doing some of those screenings on September 15th, but pending the number of potential ESL students, that may carry over beyond the week of September 15th. Therefore, we may identify some students preliminarily and ensure that services are provided, and then we will reassess students accordingly. Our next set of questions is in regards to transportation, and we are going to bring in Ms. Kathy Demetrius, who is our Assistant Business Manager, to respond to the transportation questions. So I'm going to bring her up here on screen for us.
Okay, am I live?
You're live, Kathy.
Alrighty. All right, so hello everybody. So the first question I have is, the person wrote, I envisioned long traffic lines in the morning for students and staff to contend with. What is being done to mitigate excessive traffic? Is LPD being utilized? Can a parent drop off students in front of the school and have them walk into the building to reduce long lines? Will students be penalized for being tardy if traffic is an issue? The high school did respond to a portion of this, but I did have some responses also from East Street, so I did want to, add in as well. The bus routes and times are still being worked on. East Street traffic flow is being rerouted this school year, and more information will be forthcoming. LPD is aware of our traffic concerns and has agreed to monitor and assist where needed. They are also aware of the new school dismissal app being implemented at all 3 elementary schools and have advised us from the beginning. As she mentioned, the high school principal mentioned, traffic is being discussed to ensure the safest and quickest drop-off. If a student is late because of a traffic issue, they will not be marked as tardy. So question number 2. Will you give enough time for pickup, drop-off for students in different schools? We are working with LPVEC and the schools working out the routing details. With the new DESE guidelines requiring students to maintain 6 feet of social distancing, it is expected that, especially the first few days, that it may take longer than it did in the past to unload students from the bus for parent drop-off. However, we do have less students, so that will, adjust things as well. The schools are all working on plans to minimize any potential delays, and as we've already mentioned, the elementary schools are implementing a school dismissal app that will also help. The next 3 questions are all in regards to CTEC. So I'm going to read the 3 questions, and then I will kind of read the one answer that kind of responds to all the questions. My son will be going to CTEC, so he will have to go to the high school and use the remote classroom. Will the bus pick him up all 4 days? And will transportation from the high school to home be provided? They return after school has already been let out for the day. The next CTEC question: how is transportation for CTEC students being determined? These kids have in-class learning 4 days a week and usually get transportation from the high school. How will these kids get home on their non-class days, midday, to do remote learning at home? If buses running based on street, will there be additional buses or space to get these children where they need to be timely? And then the last question on CTEC is, my 10th grade student will be hybrid Thursday, Friday. He will be attending CTEC 4 days a week. What is the transportation plan for Monday and Tuesday for getting him to high school to catch the bus to CTEC? We are still gathering information in regards to CTEC. We're working on getting different details, so we do not have the answers to these questions. We do appreciate them. They're all very thoughtful, and they are all things that we are working on and thinking about, but just don't have the answers to those yet. The next question, number 6, I would like to know more information regarding the school bus and how the drivers will be able to determine who is supposed to be picked up by the bus when most times students are waiting on the corner of 2 streets, and therefore, how are the drivers to know which kids to be picked up on the designated days of cohort A or B? It's bad enough some kids never get picked up by the bus during the first week of school because of errors in bus routes. So my question for those kids who need a bus, how are we to be assured that bus drivers know who is to be picked up when bus pickup could be a bus stop that has a street names that are opposing first letters, or kids walk to the bus stops that aren't on the street where they live on? So I have been working with LPVEC, the coordinator there, and we have been providing her all of the information in regards to how to set up the routes. She will be, once all the routes are set and we're ready to go, she will be providing all that information to the drivers so they will know on a, who's going on Monday and Tuesday and who's going on Thursday and Friday. I spoke to the coordinator today, and she said that when possible, she's keeping the routes similar to as they were in the past, so that will help as well. And, as the start of every school year, there can sometimes be some kinks that have to be worked out. But our goal is to minimize any issues with pickup and drop off throughout the year, including the first week of school. The next question is, I'm wondering when the bus forms or signups will occur. I'm also aware that the pay to ride program has not been considered for this year. I have a kindergarten student who will be able to ride the bus to Chapin Street. However, a 3rd grader who does not meet the requirements to take the bus to East Street School. My big concern is he is only 8 years old and he will be walking by himself, and we do not feel that this is a safe situation for him. I am wondering, what are your plans to support families who rely on buses to get their children safely at school when they are no longer allowed to ride the bus to get to school? I did complete the survey, and I did state that I need the bus for my children because both parents are working parents. So I wanted to start out by saying that there are not going to be any bus forms this year. We have sent out a few surveys, and I really appreciate that you did fill out the most recent survey. It was an important one. So we can certainly sympathize with the families that are trying to work out all the logistics of getting their child or children to school. As you have learned, if you live less than 1.5 miles, you will need to provide transportation. Some suggestions are to ask family members for help and check in with local families that live in the area to see if it's possible that they can help out as well. And I think that's all I have for transportation.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. At this time, I just want to make sure that I introduce Ms. Kelly McGregor. She is our Director of Food Service. My apologies for leaving her off of our introductions, but she has been here this evening with us, and she is here to respond to our food service questions. Ms. McGregor.
Good evening, everyone. The first food service question is, are packed lunches from home not allowed in our introductions, but she has been here to answer that question. And she is here to respond to our food service question. Ms. McGregor. Question number 2. I didn't see anywhere if lunches from home can still be brought in. And if they can, where will they be kept? In lockers? And how sanitation would work there? The answer to that question.
Should I start over? Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, question number 1. Are packed lunches from home not allowed this year? And the answer to that question is yes, students can bring their lunches from home. Question number 2. I didn't see anywhere if lunches from home can still be brought in, and if they can, where will they be kept? In lockers? And how sanitation would work for that? And the answer to that question is yes, students can bring their lunches from home. Storage of lunches will be up to the individual teacher and the classroom's format. Lockers will not be used for any type of storage. Students will sanitize their desks with soap and water before and after lunch. Question number 3. What if a parent forgets to order their student's lunch? The answer to that is the food service department prepares a set number of additional meals each day for this very circumstance. While the food may not have been ordered, the schools will be sure that students have an opportunity to eat. If many families do not engage in the online pre-ordering, the food service department will definitely run into problems, as they not only have to plan and prepare, but now they must package and deliver meals. We ask all families to do their very best to ensure all orders are placed ahead of time. And question number 4, when are students able to get school lunch? While students will begin orientation with teachers and staff the week of September 15th, the Ludlow Public Schools Food Service Department will not be serving lunches until September 21st.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. At this time, we move our questioning to staying healthy, and Nurse Kristen Bunton is here to address your questions. Nurse Bunton?
Thank you. Question 1. What exactly is going to happen when a student might have COVID-19 while being at school? Students who complain of sick or display one or more of the COVID-19 symptoms while in school will be brought to the school nurse. It's actually to a triage area, not the medical waiting room at that time. The school nurse will triage the individual and make a determination as whether the student will be sent home. Students who are ill do not return to the classroom. They will simply wait in the medical waiting room for pickup. Keep in mind, many illnesses and allergies mimic the symptoms of COVID-19, and we do need to err on the safety of caution for all individuals. The Ludlow Public Schools nursing staff will follow DPH guidelines if informed of a positive COVID case. Question 2. Will the attendance policy be modified as students must stay home whenever they experience mild symptoms? At this time, the student attendance policy will not be modified. School administration and nursing staff will be in close collaboration regarding student illness and attendance. Students with mild symptoms who are not able to attend in person but are well will be expected to remote into class if that option is available in that grade. 3. Is flu vaccine mandatory for both hybrid and remote learners? Yes, according to the state guidelines, the flu vaccine is mandatory for both hybrid and remote learners and will be mandatory as of December 31st, 2020. Next question. Will children who have inhalers be allowed to self-administer their inhaler or go to the nurse to use their inhalers? Yes, nothing is changing from procedures in other years. We always encourage students who self-administer inhalers to try to get to the nurse before using the medication, or use the inhaler for the emergency and then report to the nurse that the inhaler was used. That does not remain changed. How and when will parents be able to bring medications in physical forms and medication administration forms to the school nurse before school starts? I have a child with a peanut allergy and asthma. You can expect communication from the school health department early next week with specific date and times for medication drop-off, along with instructions on what needs to be brought to that drop-off time. Please continue to watch your email for information.
Okay. Thank you, Nurse Bunton. The next set of slides addresses the technology questions. Technology support is going to be critical during this process of hybrid and full remote learning, and it will be available to families and students on an ongoing basis remotely and, if needed, in person throughout the school year. The first question regarding technology is it a requirement that students use the Chromebooks, or is it that only if they do not need to have devices at home, they can access Google Apps? For instance, I might want my child to use what we already own instead of being responsible for the school's computer all year. No, for this school year, LPS students can use their own laptop or Chromebook for home use. For in-school use, students will be expected to use their LPS-issued device, which will have certain applications loaded for school and student-specific uses. For example, some students may be utilizing map testing, which will be loaded on our district-issued laptops that students would not find available at home on their own laptop or Chromebook. Question number 2, how do I get my son set up on his Chromebook from school? Students will have individual logins and passwords to access their Chromebook, as well as applications and tools. Ongoing tech support will be available throughout the school year. All families should look for school-based orientations, review of procedures, and/or disbursement of devices for new students in particular. Question number 3. Hi, I'm asking in regards to the Chromebooks that were administered to East Street Elementary. One of the Chromebooks we have has a cracked screen, so it does not work, and the other issue with them is that the kids can't log into Zoom. Please help with this situation. First, all students K through 12 will be using Google Meets. Google Meets is already a part of your student's Chromebook suite of applications. We will not be using Zoom this year. For Chromebooks that are damaged, there will be a swap day at each school that will be to be determined. The dates will be processed through the schools, and they will be parents will be informed of this information. Each school will have student help desk lines for other hardware concerns. Question number 4, will remote students be able to virtually raise their hand and ask questions during a live class session? Yes. The district has upgraded our Google Suite at this time to the enterprise system, and under the enterprise system within Google Meets, students will have the capacity to raise their hand. Question number 5, will pre-kindergarten and elementary students need to bring their Chromebooks to school on in-person learning days? Referring to the WIN slide that references a reminder to keep Chromebooks charged. In general, all students should be transporting their Chromebooks to and from school daily as needed. However, students need to follow the protocols of their teachers or grade level, as this will vary from teacher to teacher and grade to grade. So at this time, we have concluded our series of questions that we received from our site-based presentation last week, and we will be opening up our live questions. You'll see here on the screen, there is the link before you that you can go to address those questions that may still remain. So we're going to open up that forum. And as we open up this forum, what we will do is I will read the question, and we will volley that question to the appropriate administrator to respond, and we will do our very best to make sure we give you the full extent of information you're hoping to receive. Mike, is it possible we're not getting questions? So we are live, and we're just waiting to receive questions, and it looks like we have one coming up. We have a question from Diane Ogorzalak. Are doors and windows going to be open? If so, what is being done about school safety? So, Diane, one of the things that the Department of Education has encouraged is that schools do keep windows open so that we are able to provide proper ventilation for students within the context of the classroom, obviously weather permitting. And of course, we will continue to maintain all Safety precautions around door access and entries will still be requiring families to state their name and the reason why they're coming to the school. So we will continue to make sure that all safety procedures are in place while providing proper ventilation. We have a question from Maria Alexio. How will band be handled for fully remote students? So I'm going to put that over to the floor for our principals if they'd like to respond.
At the high school, there will be a lot of different curriculum that will be covered. Most of it will be about music theory or perhaps music analysis of different types of composers. So I think your best answer would be to reach out to the band teacher, but I know he has been looking through all the standards and working closely throughout Western Mass with some of the band teachers to make sure that they can deliver the best possible curriculum remotely. You want to answer?
I actually spoke to the band teacher today, and it sounds like remote will be our best option for those students who are continuing to play instruments, that they will be able to play hopefully simultaneously with his instruction as well. So.
At Veterans Park School, we are going to be offering remote band for anybody who's interested in 5th grade only. However, we will not be continuing or moving forward with 4th grade band for this year. So all students will have the option, whether they're in the hybrid model or fully remote, to participate in band if they're in 5th grade.
Also at the middle and high school, Smart Music app has been purchased, and that will allow students the opportunity to play their instruments and record that for their band instructors. So that's another way that we can have our remote students accessing our band. We have a question here from Melissa Molinari, and I apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly. Will there be a tour for incoming 6th grade students? So Principal Manette.
So we have not decided yet actually how we're going to do this. Speaking to my assistant principal today, we have the luxury now of bringing in our 6th graders first and bringing in half of them. So they will be getting some extra attention from us, and we will be working out the details about that in the next few days.
The next question is from Terry Longo. My son is a sophomore at the high school. He is set to do hybrid. He is supposed to start C-Tech in the fall. Their hybrid is 4 days per week. Can I do hybrid for LPS and remote for C-Tech? My only issue with C-Tech is the increased exposure due to the fact that they service 8 other communities. Principal Nemeth?
Yes, C-Tech is offering a remote learning platform, so you could reach out to the C-Tech principal and let them know that you're interested in remote while you do hybrid at the high school. That is definitely a possibility.
We have another question from Terry Longo. If he is allowed to do LPS hybrid and C-Tech remotely, will he get out of school early to come home to do his remote work for C-Tech?
That option, we will be calling families individually to find out what works best for you. We will have a remote learning environment at the high school if he cannot get home, but the preference is that students would go home to do the remote portion of C-Tech on their remote learning days. And yes, he would get out early. He could eat lunch at the high school first, or he could eat lunch at home. So there is like an hour window time that he would be allowed to get home.
The next question is from Diana Gorzlak. Will there be snow days this year, or will we do remote learning on severe weather days? At this time, Ms. Ogorzlak, we have not yet determined that measure, and information would be forthcoming from the superintendent's office as to how we handle snow days in this remote environment. We do have to make sure that we do hit our target 170 school days. The next question is from Kim Bamford. Will there be lunches and breakfast for the remote students? So I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Kelly McGregor in food service.
Yes, we will be doing lunch and breakfast for remote as well as the students that are in for hybrid.
We have a question here from Crystal F. For middle school, will kids be in the same room all day And if so, how will that work for languages? I have an 8th grade child. Also, will accelerated math be an option this year?
Great questions. Yes, students will be in for a majority of the day, will remain with their same cohort, with the exception of some leaving for specials, for languages, for example, and accelerated math is happening this year.
The next question is from Beverly Landers. Hi, my son's Chromebook doesn't charge properly. How is he going to get that fixed? Well, Beverly, we are setting up a time for those swaps as previously mentioned, and we also will have a help desk set up. So please stay tuned for your students' building, and we will make sure that that Chromebook is swapped out. Sue Therian writes in and asks, since students are required to be kept 6 feet apart, students will not be able to work together in groups, have small groups, or collaborate with their peers. How can you ensure my first grader will be able to learn appropriately while being safe? Will he be expected to sit at a desk all day long? Principal Welch.
Yes, that's a good question. So, there will be many mass breaks as well as movement breaks during the day. So your son won't be at the desk for the whole day for the 6 or 6.5 hours. Instruction, you are correct, there will be no small group instruction, at least in a close proximity, but teachers will make their best efforts to work with small groups and individual students on a as-needed basis, and keeping the social distance aspect of the 6 feet from each other.
So this question is from Stacy. She is asking that she states that this question was asked previously, but it was not fully answered. What is the protocol if a student has a cold? If they have to stay home, it could be the days out of school. Can they remote in for credit? This was not clear, and would they be able to attend sports that day? Nurse Bunton?
So if the student with the cold who has to be dismissed from school is in a grade where there is hybrid option happening all day, so that would be middle school and high school, they can absolutely remote in from home if they feel well enough to, and then that would be counted as in attendance. That's a different answer. I'm going to defer to the principals for the elementary schools, correct?
Correct. So at the elementary level, we do not have teachers teaching all of the days. So they'll be teaching remotely on the days that the child's remote. So there won't be a teacher available for that child to go live on those days.
And then in the answer regarding sports, if a student is unable to remain in school due to health conditions, the same follows through to sports. If they are symptomatic with symptoms on the COVID-19 list, they also cannot participate in sports practices or sports events because there is still concern for spread of possible virus.
Thank you. Virginia Kilbanya writes, will full remote students and their parents have an opportunity to meet teachers assigned to them in person before the start of the school year? So we briefly touched upon this the week of the 15th we have as orientation time. So teachers will be reaching out to their students and families to provide opportunity to connect and establish that community bond that we will need to work more carefully at establishing this school year with our remote environments. Kayla writes, I am a little confused. For the week of September 15th, will elementary kids be doing virtual learning the entire week? Also, is the orientation for East Street School on the 15th remote? Principal Welch?
So the orientation on the 15th will be for first grade students. That will be live, so to speak, and we will be inviting our first grade families at certain times during the day. So there will be notification of that at a future date soon enough. For kindergarten and preschool students, their orientation will be when they receive their screening, which would be with their classroom teacher, whoever they're assigned to. And at that time, there'll be an opportunity, of course, to meet the teacher, to see the class, and also pick up a Chromebook and things that we need to distribute to our students at that time. What was, excuse me, what was the first question?
So the first part of the question was, for the week of September 15th, will elementary kids be doing virtual learning the entire week?
So we have the orientation set up, and teachers will be reaching out to their students, but because of the dates that we are having the family orientation, we wouldn't necessarily be starting the morning of the 15th and working throughout the week on a remote basis, because we do have different orientation days set up for the 3 different schools. And so more information will come out on that, but no, there's not an expectation that we would be remotely working with each child and each family for the entire week.
Okay. Thank you, Principal Welch. Zach LePage writes in, if students are required to receive flu shots, will this be mandated for staff as well? Is that correct? Nurse Button?
The mandate has been set by the state of Massachusetts, and right now the mandate is for students only. We do offer flu shots for our staff, and we usually have high attendance, and we anticipate doing the same. But unless the state mandates it, that remains a mandate for students.
Thank you, Nurse Button. Anita Lombardi writes in, is hybrid remote learning remain, does hybrid remote learning remain for the whole school year? Any plans for full in-person return this school year? So right now, what we are working on is the hybrid remote, and we are obviously following DPH guidance and monitoring that closely. We're in the process of establishing what those metrics are that would help us to determine whether the district is able to consider moving to a whole return to school for full in-person. And so we do need to pay attention to those metrics and establish that. And that also goes for the idea of moving from hybrid and remote to full remote. We are in the process of establishing those metrics. The metrics will be not just one source, so we'll be looking at multiple sources and over the course of a period of time, which has been provided through guidance through the Department of Education in collaboration with medical professionals. Nurse Button, anything in addition?
Answered well, thank you.
All right, let's see. Lucia Kopek. Sorry if you already answered this question and I missed it. What about an orientation for the new middle and high school students?
The question was answered for the middle school, that they are still thinking about it and planning. For the high school, 9th grade comes in by themselves for a week. So right now our intention is to orientate them when they come in, but the final decision hasn't been made. You will most likely get an email tomorrow or the next day as to what the final decision will be, but we are excited to have the 9th graders by themselves for a week, so that might possibly be the best time to do the orientation.
Any additional items, Ms. Monette?
I did just want to mention real quick, we will be doing something for our strictly remote 6th graders, which I did not mention before. So.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Amanda Lipsum writes in asking, if a student is on an IEP, if they do not adjust well to the in-person days of their hybrid schedule, can a change to full remote learning be considered, other than the quarterly changes that have been communicated? Ms. Tillotson?
At this time, the district has made the decision that if you are in one model for a certain marking period, you need to continue in that model until the end of that marking period or that report card time.
Thank you. Kim H. asks, my son has bad allergies from about mid-October until late February. How will this be dealt with in regards to COVID symptoms? Will he be sent home constantly? If that's the case, he'll be home more than he is in school. Nurse Bunton.
So I would anticipate that probably in the beginning, as we are, honestly figuring this all out, that there probably will be communication between the school nurse and the parent that will require dismissal and will probably require some evaluation from the doctor. If we are able to establish a baseline of what his symptoms are like with doctor input that's documented, we can move forward with a plan that would, as long as those symptoms remain at baseline and there's no change to those symptoms, that he would not need to be dismissed at every time. But there is going to be a process that we'll have to go through in order to establish that baseline and the appropriate medical documentation so that everyone feels comfortable with those symptoms.
Thank you. The next question is from Diane Matarzano. How will physical education class be with remote students? My son is in 9th grade. Principal Nemeth?
Right now, we are using an online platform for our physical education 9th grade students that are fully remote. So that platform will be explained more to parents as we get closer to the beginning of the school year.
Also important to note, district-wide, our physical education staff over the summer has engaged in an online course on how to provide physical education in a remote environment. So we're hoping that we'll be able to take some great information from those learnings and apply them district-wide as well. This question comes from Jen McGregory. Are hot lunches going to be offered for the elementary schools on the in-person days at some point? Ms. McGregor?
Yes, we will be offering hot lunches. We're going to phase it in. At the beginning, we're starting off with cold lunches, but eventually we will be phasing in the hot lunches.
Thank you. Anita Lombardi writes in and asks, how are specials going to look like this year? PE, art, or music? Well, we've touched a little bit upon PE, but could we just highlight art and music as well?
Sure. So at the elementary level, all students are going to be receiving 6 different specials throughout the year. However, they will be receiving 2 specials each trimester. So they will receive those specials both in person in the hybrid model and remote. There will be a mix of both.
Any additional information from middle or high?
At the middle school, there will be the same rotation of specials, following the distancing formatting, trying to get students outside as much as we can to make sure that we can still continue with all of our specials in the somewhat same fashion.
And at the high school level, all specials, or we call them electives, will be offered, just like any other year.
Okay, great. Zach LaPrage writes in, if students are required to receive flu shots, this will be mandated for staff as well. I believe this is a duplicate question, and Nurse Bunton did address it in regards to, right now the mandate is student-specific, and it is not related to staff, but we do continue to offer our flu clinics, and we do have a high participation rate from our staff. Maria Alexio writes, will there be orientation for fully remote students going into 9th grade? Is this a duplicate question? Are we running into duplicates? I'm sorry. Will there be orientation for fully remote students going into 9th grade?
At this time, we don't have an exact plan, but we will definitely be looking into it, probably developing something, and I would say look in your emails in the next couple of days or definitely beginning of next week.
Great. Thanks, Principal Nemeth. Diana Gorzalak writes, students will be on the computer for 6 to 8 hours per day. Will teachers be directed to be sensitive about assigning homework so that students are not on the computer upwards of 8 to 10 hours? So I know we mentioned homework in regards to our elementary students, that we will not be providing homework at the elementary level at this time. But the homework question in regards to middle and high school.
Yeah, at the high school level, I think it's going to be teacher dependent. I know the teachers have been working over the summer for professional development in order to develop new strategies for teaching, learning, assessment. So at this time, there's no written suggestion or policy that there is no homework, but the teachers and I will definitely be having a conversation as to what homework should look like, how much, and additional information like that.
To follow up from what Mrs. Nemeth said, this is a discussion I will be having with teachers as we come back over the next 10 days, deciding together what that looks like. I agree, I do not want any middle school student on a computer for 8 hours.
I think it's also important to note in all of our school schedules, we're looking at synchronous and asynchronous learning times, and so that there will be times when students will be kind of stepping away from the computer while they may still be logged in and engaging in work. So we're looking to try to capture that learning environment and not necessarily be constantly 100%, in front of a screen at all times. So it's definitely something we are cognizant of, is that screen time. Khalid Izaba, I apologize if I've mispronounced your name. This question asks, will there be a live session for kindergarten, 2nd and 5th grades, or recorded or some? Thank you. So I think what the question is intending to ask is, for kindergarten, will there be live sessions, as well as for 2nd and 5th grade? And the second part, I believe, simply asks, will these sessions be recorded?
So, okay, so if I'm hearing the question correctly, yes, if the student is in a hybrid, there will be live sessions, there'll be live instruction by the teacher. There may be some recorded material that the teacher pushes out for students to view or to be a part of. So yes, that is true. There will be live sessions in kindergarten if you're in the hybrid model, and also if you're in the remote model, you'll be working with the teacher live and also offline at times too. And yes, and it's the same pre-K to 5th grade.
So that applies to all grade levels?
Yes.
Perfect. So we have a question from Anita Lombardi. Can you please confirm that there is no homework for this school year? So this is a question that we've received, and as we've noted, kindergarten through 5th grade, there will not be homework. From middle school through high school, homework will be decided based on the teacher and the course to which the students are engaged in. Christopher Clark writes, I selected for my child to be in full remote, and she starts in a new school this year. She is entering 2nd grade. She did not receive a Chromebook and is worried she won't be able to meet her new teacher. Are students going to get Chromebooks and meet the teachers if they are full remote?
Yes, that's very important to us as administrators. We made sure that we'd have time during before school started that all students could meet their teacher. Every student will get a Chromebook, so rest assured, let your daughter know that she's in good hands and she will get a Chromebook and she will meet her teacher before starting her school year.
Thank you, Principal Reed. Karen Mowry writes in, how or when will books be distributed this year?
So at the elementary level, we do have workbooks that students will be using for math and for reading. So students will get that along with their Chromebook, whether it's at orientation or possibly when they get to class for their first day of in-learning lessons. And then the remote students will get it at orientation as well.
Middle and high?
At the middle school, we have very limited textbooks. Most of it is online digital. We will be discussing that when the teachers come back to make sure that we have a plan rolled out for all students, including remote, solely remote, and the hybrid students to receive whatever consumables, textbooks that they may need.
At the high school level, I have spoken with the department chairs, and they are confident that most of the teachers and the classes can be taught without books for the first couple weeks. I did promise them that if any teacher does need to distribute books and feels strongly that the teacher needs books, we will have some type of distribution at night so that parents can drive their students or parents can come by themselves and pick them up on a rotating sign-up type of basis. So I do need to meet with the teachers to see, which subject, which students they believe absolutely need the books. Otherwise, our teachers, again, have been working hard over the summer to be very creative and thoughtful as to how to teach without the books for the first couple weeks.
Great. So we have a shout out to Principal Nemeth from John Mitchell saying that she's a true pineapple, stands tall, sweet on the inside, and wears a crown. Thanks for all you are doing for making the school year work. And I think we can say that across the board. The administrative team has been working tirelessly to make sure that our students have the best start to the school year that they possibly can, no matter what their platform looks like, whether it's hybrid or remote. And we thank families for being patient with us. This is a moving target that we continue to try to address to the best of our ability while trying to solidify information for you, but also to continue to be true to the fact that some things continue to be that moving target. And we realize that it may produce some anxiety for others, and it does produce anxiety for us too with some of those unknowns that we're typically used to understanding at this point of the school year, looking to bring students and our staff back. So thank you, Mr. Mitchell, and thank you to all the administrators and their hard work. Kim Keaton writes in, will students be going outside for mass breaks? So Kim, one of the things that we are working to do is we are working to identify areas within and outside of the building for mass breaks. Each individual building will identify the protocols from which students are able to go outside and the spaces, locations, and the number of students so that we're able to maintain that socially acceptable boundaries that we need for students while unmasked, which is 6 feet or fewer. Or, excuse me, 6 feet or more. Ms. Nurse Button?
In addition, it's important to remember that because our students are sitting 6 feet apart, we can arrange mass breaks in the classroom if we do every other row, because then students are more like 11 to 12 feet apart, which would be more than above and beyond what the safety standards are. So mass breaks, I anticipate, will be a combination of both strategies.
Perfect. Thank you, Nurse Brennan. Melissa Molinari, will there be half days? I have issues with transportation on those days, but chose the option of no bus to give others the opportunity that really needed busing. So will there be half days? At this point, in regards to in-person learning, they are full day sessions, and that is what our schedule allows for. There will not be half days. Ed Daragon, in the winter, can band be put in the gym where there is more room? Otherwise, music theory will be quite boring, and if this is the case, can kids switch to art if that is available until band can be done?
Thank you for that question. I am a huge band advocate, so yes, as long as we can get them in there and we are following the guidelines of 10 feet apart, and I have much smaller class sizes at this point, so I do think that is definitely an option.
And I will say at the high school level, we will have our physical education classes in the gym, so I'm not sure how that would work, even though we do have 2 gymnasiums. Anything's possible. We can definitely look at that. We also have the auditorium where they could spread out. So there are a lot of options that we can definitely keep in mind. About switching in the middle of the semester, that is also an option, but usually band is a full year, and I know Mr. McAvoy would definitely want to keep students as a full year. So again, I've spoken to him numerous times about how he's going to teach the class and move it forward with the curriculum.
Okay, thank you. Just to go back to the half-day question, at the elementary level, what I am being reminded of is that we do have half days for conferences. So if our elementary principals, if you could speak to that, as that might have been part of the question, I understood as half days for in person, but is there any clarity that you'd like to add there?
At this time, I don't know if the school calendar has been solidified with the school committee, but we usually have half days in November for conferencing with parents and night conferences. So I just didn't want that parent to think those are totally gone. It might be still up for discussion, but that would be, if it was the same as last year, we do have half days.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that clarification. Jennifer Hartbarger writes, what happens if children are unable to check in at their designated times due to childcare issues? Let's take that from elementary, then go to middle, and then high.
I guess at the elementary level, we're just looking at each other because we're all like seeing who's going to speak. But it would be typical if a child's, had a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment, something in the morning, and they came in late, they would check in at the front desk or the window outside and let us know who the child was, and they'd come in the front main door. So certainly, if the child was running late, they would still come to the main office door at the elementary level.
And if it was in a remote situation, of course, the teacher would have some discretion as far as, checking in when the student checked in and what reason the student had for missing the, maybe the scheduled remote time.
And to piggyback what elementary is saying, the same thing if they are coming in on the hybrid days, in-person days, the same expectation, they would come to the office. If it's remote, we do want to reinforce that there is an attendance component to this, so we will have to look at that if it's, a situation where a student shows up 15 minutes late, that will be between them and the teacher.
And at the high school level, tardies are not looked upon favorably. I know we are in a different situation, but we do have a tardy policy. We do have an absentee policy, which we are going to try to enforce as much as possible. So I think if this becomes a pattern, it would definitely have to be a discussion amongst the teacher, the school counselor, assistant principal, parents, whoever we need to bring to the table. But it is very important for, at the high school level, students to be on time to every class, whether remote, hybrid, in person, whatever it may be.
Thank you. Anita Lombardi writes in asking, how do I get notified of my child's progress during the day? There are many instances this spring that I didn't know that my kids were not doing their work. I won't be home during the day and won't be able to check what's going on with their work until the evening.
So I can take that for elementary. At the elementary level, the classroom teachers will be using Google Classroom, and the parents can sign up for notifications through Google Classroom and get a parent summary, as well as be notified for missing assignments and upcoming assignments, as well as class announcements. Also, we'll be tracking progress in the student portal, grading students there, so there will be access for parents to obtain for that as well, so you can keep track of assignments that are missing or how they're doing and progressing throughout the curriculum.
At the high school level, same thing. They could get notifications through Google Classroom, but also the school counselor reaches out. The teacher usually reaches out. The parent at any time, feel free to email the teacher at the end of the week just to say how did he do or what's going on. We do like to foster independence at the high school level, but you're always welcome to email the teacher directly or check in with the school counselor.
At the middle school, we also utilize Google Classroom. The school counselors are fantastic in tracking, as well as the teachers, and I just can't stress enough with parents to just make sure you're maintaining constant communication with your child's team of teachers.
Lily Kanawa writes in asking, how often will teachers reach out to parents on kids' progress?
At the elementary level, I think, mimicking what everybody else is saying, we just want to make sure that all parents and teachers are in constant communication with one another. So we're not going to wait for conferences or wait for report cards to come out to let you know that your child's not progressing well. So we're going to have those conversations. So reach out to teachers at any time, and they will be doing the same to parents.
And again, if you have concerns over a specific subject, reach out directly to that teacher. If you have a concern in general about your child and their how they're doing academically, please reach out to our school counselors.
And to say how often is a hard question to answer. Usually once the teacher starts to see a change at the high school level in the children's performance, that's usually when they will reach out, but the school counselor, again, is also usually a big part of this situation, but yeah, there's not really an exact answer to that. Most teachers will reach out when they see a huge dramatic change.
Thank you. This is a high school question. Will there be after-school clubs at the high school? If so, would a fully remote student be able to participate virtually?
At this time, there are not after-school clubs. We're going to see how our first term and second term goes and where we're at throughout the year. We still will have National Honor Society and Student Council that will meet remotely, and other than that, clubs will not be meeting.
This is a question in regards to the SIP program. Will the kiddos be expected to do remote for the week until September 21st?
You gotta use the mic, Eva.
We're just passing the mic over to Ms. Tillotson.
Repeat that question again, Erica, please.
Sure. We're going to repeat that question. The question is, for the SIP program, will kiddos be expected to do remote for the week until September 21st?
So those 4 days are going to be used in the beginning to have students come in and just meet their teachers. That's got to all be set up with the teachers and the families. But if they're home, obviously everyone's going to be remote that week, just like everybody else is. But then once they come in, they'll be in 4 days and remote on Wednesdays.
Great. Thank you. William Nicolai writes, I apologize if this has been covered in the many emails and I have not yet read it. Will students be required to be on video during each class, or has some requirement been set to prove the child is participating in the class? So we have students who they're required to obviously be in class and checking in daily. That's how teachers know that students are present, the way our hybrid models work. And so will students be required to be on video during each class? If this is a video where students are grouped or they're participating in a live lesson, yes, students are going to be expected to be present. On video, I'm interpreting as being on Google Meets. That's how I'm interpreting this question. And so therefore, yes, the student would be expected to be there during those times. And we do also ask that students, while they're online, that they also be present and participating, as also noted in the second half of that question. That's going to be really important for teachers, that students are participating in the discourse that takes place during that time while they are online, so that they know that they're engaged actively. Jessica Lebowski writes, how are children's needs being met whose IEPs and need more support? So the question is, how are children's needs being met who are on IEPs and need more support?
Well, each teacher will be taking a look at the child's IEP that they have in their class, and whether they're hybrid or remote, and those services will be provided according to the IEPs.
During remote learning, will parents be notified if a child has not checked into a particular class? If so, how? And this is from William Nickel. So, go ahead, Ms. Nemeth.
At the high school level, attendance will be taken in Aspen, and Google Classroom it will transfer over. So you can definitely check Aspen just like you would on any given day to see if your child was present per class, per period. So a parent can definitely check that. Once we, see a pattern of a student not being there, we will definitely make a phone call or an email home at the high school level.
So that is going to be a difference at Baird this year, is it will be a period-by-period attendance for that reason, for those students who are strictly remote, and for the days that those other hybrid students are at home learning, is the period-by-period will transfer from Google Classroom to Aspen, and again, the same thing as the high school. We will be in contact with home if it looks like it's a pattern of students being absent from classes.
That's the same at the elementary level. We will still be sending out a robocall if kids are not present in school at the beginning of the day. So the overall daily attendance, that will still take place. Classroom attendance will translate into Aspen because we will have to be taking that as well this year.
Okay. The next question is, when do I find out who my child's teacher is? She is in first grade. Also, can you confirm, will she be marked absent if she's not feeling well during her in-person days for hybrid learning? Principal Welch.
So, excuse me, but I was receiving a text at that time that I had to read regarding an answer. So, could you repeat that for me?
So the question on the floor is, when will I find out who my child's teacher is? She is going into first grade. Also, can you confirm, will she be marked absent if she's not feeling well during her in-person days for hybrid learning?
Yes. Okay. So the first part of the question is, we are putting the rosters together this week now that we have had the parent survey due date pass of last Friday. So we now know who our cohort C students will be, and then of course our A and B students by address. So we will be working on the rosters this week and getting them out shortly to our parents and also our teachers. As far as the absent, I believe we had this earlier, but to repeat, when a child is, say, in their hybrid class, and we'll say for this discussion that she is in cohort A and she is to be in school Monday and Tuesday, but is ill on Monday, she will, if she doesn't report into school, yes, she will be absent, and no, she won't be able to participate remotely because her teacher on that day will be live in class with her classmates and will not be teaching remotely on that day. I hope that clears that up.
This is Nurse Bunton. I think it'll be important for parents to make sure that they are communicating with the school nurse when their student is home ill, because that will help us track who is actually home for illness, and that will be part of their record.
Thank you. Anita Lombardi writes in, so if my 5th grader is sent home on Monday due to possible symptoms and misses school on Tuesday, cohort A, they will be marked as absent for both days since you don't have any teachers available to teach them remotely.
Yeah, so if they're sent home on a Monday, depending on what time of day, it would be marked as a dismissal like usual. And then on the Tuesday, if they're not present for in-person learning, then they would be marked absent at the elementary level.
Elise Bartolucci writes in, if schools are mandated to start on September 15th, how come our students are not starting on the 15th? How can they get credit for a day they don't actually attend school or learn remotely? So right now we are working with our students to provide the social emotional learning aspect of instruction as outlined by the Department of Education. They're looking for us to make sure that we're establishing those close connections, particularly in this virtual environment that we're working through. So that first week is social emotional learning for our students as we create orientations, we bring students in, they meet their teachers, they are getting set up. So this is all academic time. And while it might seem peculiar as not book learning and paper and pencil type of outcomes, these are the types of classroom setups that occur naturally in the first week of school. It's the establishment of routines, practices, procedures, handing out materials, and developing those rapports with our students and their peers. And so that is how we are looking at the week of September 15th in accordance with guidance that has also been shared with us. Is there any other addition? Okay, thank you. Walter P. writes, how will open house work for the schools this year? Well, Walter, that's a great question. Open house will certainly be different this year, but we will not be doing open house. So we are going to, be in close communications with parents and families to make sure that they're fully aware of what the expectations of their students will be. Sue Therian writes in, what are the expectations for parents while students are learning virtually? I am a teacher and will be teaching during this time. My first grader will be in the room with me, but I will not be able to pay attention to what is going on in the lesson.
So our teachers will have their class of students in front of them. There'll be a schedule when they're checking in and when they're pushing out instruction. We will have, or the student will have an opportunity during the day to be working offline or without the teacher being online with their classmates. The teacher will be setting up times when there might be some remote group work or there might be some remote individual time with their students. So the student is not going to be online for the whole day, and I believe, does that answer her question?
So essentially what they were asking was, while they'll be teaching and their first grader is online, they're not going to be able to pay attention to what's going on in the lesson. So,
right.
Yes.
So again, the student will be with the teacher online, who will be pushing out instruction and interacting with her child and then the other children in the class at that time.
So we have a question from Melissa Molinari. Will drop-off and dismissal be any different for the middle school? Principal Manette?
The only difference is it will be much more controlled and staggered in the morning. Just like always, where we have buses on the one side, that will continue, and we will be making sure that as students get off there following the physical distancing requirements. In the morning, again, it's a staggered as parents loop around in the front by the flagpole. We will be there as we normally are, just making sure, again, students are going into school one at a time following the distancing requirements. The dismissal will, again, look the same, except for it's much more controlled and staggered at the end of the day with the teachers, guiding students out to the buses one classroom at a time.
Great. Nurse Button, this is for your domain. The question comes in regards to, are kids required to have flu shot if they are fully remote? That's from Anita Lombardi.
The answer I have to that is I just refer you back to what the state mandate is. The current state mandate says that flu shots are required for students whether they are in the in-person, hybrid, or remote learning model.
Thank you. Zach LePage writes in, what happens to attendance records of remote learning if missed due to Wi-Fi connectivity issues beyond parent control? So we state this at large, K to 12, in regards to Wi-Fi. We encourage families to check their connectivity, and if they have intermittent connectivity, to make sure that they're reaching out to both teacher and administrator of their school so that we can work together to ensure that folks are able to secure Wi-Fi connectivity for those remote days. If students do miss due to connectivity, it will be marked as an absence. And again, reach out to us if that continues to be an issue, and we will do our best to try to support families to the greatest extent possible. Cam writes in on Wednesday, how will schools be effectively clean and disinfected with a full staff present in the building?
This is Nurse Bunton. I will take that. For cleaning and disinfecting, we are still going to have custodial staff who are going to be there in the evenings. So during Wednesdays, they can be deep cleaning less used space, such as student bathrooms, since there will be no students there, and classrooms where there are no staff or students present, and then deep cleaning of the spaces where staff are in will take place during the evening shift.
Okay, thank you, Nurse Button. At this point, we're going to take about 15 more questions, and any questions that we are unable to get to at that point, we'll be sure to take dictation and respond to the question and answers of this time. Okay, so we're going to take a few more here. We have Anna Vargas. When will students with an IEP be returning to school, and what will the school week look like?
Students will be returning on the schedule that's been set forth by the school committee the other, last week. So it'll be different depending on if your child is in a substantially separate classroom. They will be in from the very beginning, the week of the 21st. Other students inclusion students are going to be following the schedule of the cohort that they're in. If they're in cohort A, and if they're in cohort B, and depending on the grade level, when that grade level is coming back, depending on the week that they're coming back. So that's all in the schedule that was presented last week.
Anita Lombardi writes in, will parents be required to print any pages for kids to complete, or will it be provided by the school during the hybrid days? I printed a lot of pages in the spring and may need to invest in a new printer before the start of the school year.
So at the elementary level and really across the board, teachers are much better prepared this year to handle remote learning. Last year it was an emergency situation, so we were trying to do things on the fly. But this year we're much better prepared. Elementary students will have workbooks that they will take back and forth to school that will be used, so that printing should be very limited, if any.
All right, so Lucia Kopek, if a student's face mask breaks, will the school provide a new one?
Yes, we do have extra face masks available for students if their face mask breaks. We do encourage all parents to pack their student with an additional face mask, possibly like in a Ziploc bag or a pencil pouch in their book bag to have with them, but we will have extra masks available.
Anita Lombardi writes in, will kids be able to lend books from the library this year?
At this time, no, they will not be allowed to take books out of the library, and teachers will be able to make their classroom libraries available to students on a daily basis.
This is a question for the high school. Karen Mowry writes in, will the high school water policy be adjusted? Water bottle policy be adjusted?
We have adjusted the water bottle policy at all grade levels, including the secondary level. Students should bring in their own water bottles that they will use during the school day.
Angela Dennis writes in the spring, when I had teacher conferences, my daughter's teachers at the time said that she would possibly have to have another IEP. They never got back to us because of the virus. How will I know if she's going to need one? Director Tillotson?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Did the IEP expire or read that to me again?
So,
Sarah?
sure. In the spring when I had the teacher conference, my daughter's teachers at the time said that she would possibly have to have another IEP. They never got back to us because of the virus. How will I know if she's going to need one?
I'm not sure by that question if the child actually has an IEP already or if the teacher during the conference suggested maybe that the child may need an IEP. So if the child does not have an IEP, then the parent should send me a letter or an email requesting testing. But if the child already has an IEP and the parent is saying that maybe the annual review wasn't completed, please email me, give me your child's name, and I'll check into it.
Thank you. Anita Lombardi writes in, are children on a 504 getting additional help? My son is going to second grade and has ADHD.
So I can speak to the whole elementary and probably middle school and high school for I-504 is that any student who is on a 504, the accommodations will be honored. So yes, the 504s will be honored and the support will be provided.
Thank you. Sandra C. writes in, my child gets migraines and we have been monitoring them how often my child gets them. Will I need to provide a doctor's note to make sure my child is not being sent home if it's not COVID related? Nurse Bunton?
Yes, a doctor's note will make this conversation go much easier and smoother, and also probably a conversation with the school nurses. The school nurses will be in their offices beginning Friday, but I do suggest that you do get a doctor's note and have a conversation with the school nurse.
Diana Gorzlak writes in, do students need to have cameras on while remote learning?
I'll answer that from the high school level. At the high school level, we are putting in recommendations / procedures to what needs to occur during remote learning. And yes, we would like to have the camera on so that we can see the student. The teacher may ask for them to leave the session if they're at home doing the hybrid model to maybe do some group work or individual work, I should say. But at this point, the high school is leaning towards yes, the camera should be on, but it's still under further discussion.
And I will say the same for the middle school. Again, it's a discussion up for the teachers when they come back, but at this point, yes, it is an expectation.
At the elementary school, we want to see their faces, so yes, we do want them to have their cameras on during remote learning.
Terrific. Thank you. Anita Lombardi writes in, how do we get a login for Aspen? Principal Knowles?
At the elementary level, we will be having parents sign up during the orientation for Aspen Access. You can also gain access by going onto the Ludlow Public Schools website and signing up for your portal access there.
Okay. So we have 3 questions remaining, so we'll get in all of our questions this evening as it appears. Virginia Kilbana writes, on the elementary level, will full remote students be able to interact with their in-classroom peers? Thank you.
Yes, at the elementary level, we're going to have a lot of opportunities for group work and to have that interaction taking place. The teachers are going to be working on that in their first 10 days of PD as to exploring different ways that they can have their students interacting, whether they're in person or remote.
Anita Lombardi writes, how many absences are allowed in order to pass to the next grade?
Well, at the elementary level, we certainly want to look at talking with the school nurse, the adjustment counselor, and the parent to find out exactly why the student's out, and if there's, reasons of concern, we want to catch that earlier than when we get to that 95% of when we want the child in school. So we want the child to be there 95% of, we want them there every day, but certainly if there's issues and they have attendance reasons to be out, we would look at 95%. And then we would just have a discussion regarding retention if needed at that time. But parents would know this way ahead of time. They wouldn't be blindsided by any type of retention due to attendance.
Middle and high school, any input?
I will speak for the middle school. We track attendance very closely at Baird, and again, I'm glad you said 95%. It's our goal for 100% attendance, knowing that situations do happen, but we do track it, and you will be hearing from my awesome assistant, Mrs. Dovek, if that becomes an issue.
At the high school level, same exact. We shoot for 95% or better, hopefully 100%, but we do have a finite number, which is for half-year courses, you can only have 8 or less absences before you lose credit, and a full year course is 16. Again, if we start to get close to those, letters go home, phone calls are made, and we track it very closely. We work with a teams to address any types of attendance issues, and we're always, open to different circumstances that occur. So although those are hard numbers, there's always a little bit of flexibility if the documentation is there and there are legitimate reasons for that.
And our last question of the evening comes from Pamela Kochanowicz. Will labs still be offered for high school science classes? Principal Nemeth?
Yes.
All right. Excellent. So We thank everyone that's listening out there and have joined us for this important site-based conversation to answer questions that families and students are having as we approach our return to school. We hope that we've done an ample job to inform you as well as answer questions that have been outstanding. And as you can see from the screen in front of you, we have set up a email address so that if you continue to have questions or you think of something in the near future, you can write to us at questions@ludlowps.org, and we will work to respond to those questions as best as we possibly can. We will also be posting this presentation and the questions for families to refer back to in the near future as well. So on behalf of the entire district administrative team, we thank you all for participating with us this evening and wish you well. And we look forward to welcoming students back in whatever capacity that might be for the 2020-2021 school year. Until that time, have a great evening.